this morning to talk about your wife. And many people have said, why? Why do you want to talk about my wife? Some people took it very seriously, actually.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good morning. Yes, I was putting up on my side to say which half, which is, I think, it's a cheeky way of saying a little bit about equality and which half is the other half. So let's talk about that today.
You know me, I talk directly. It's me to ask.
Talking about the wife.
Yeah. I want to talk about the wife, not about the husband today. No?
Why is that?
Because it's International Women's Week.
Well, that was last week.
Still this week.
Okay.
And in the newspaper and most of the headlines for the last couple of days has been all about the Guardian report, actually, post the abduction and murder of the girl in Clapham. I can't remember her name.
Sarah Everton.
Sarah Everton?
I think so.
Yeah. There has been a survey done by the Guardian newspaper that not Guardian newspaper, sorry, YouGov did a survey of 1,000 women. I think it was reported by the Guardian newspaper, where they found all 100% of those women interviewed who have been sexually harassed in their life.
Terrible. It's just a terrible news.
Every woman.
Everyone experienced harassment at some point in their life. That's a terrible.
Ladies and gentlemen, that made me feel very disgusted.
You did a khutbah about it, didn't you?
Disgusted about being a man, because guess what? Who perpetrates such violence against women? I know you may say violence, yes it is, violation against women. That it's men, and I felt very sick to my core just reading that report. I got so enraged and so angry. My Friday khutbah, if you listen to it, it's on my Facebook and my YouTube. You will see that I am very, very angry with men who behave like this towards women. So I think we should talk about that today.
So that's the other half.
More painfully, actually. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I've got ambivalent feelings today, because I also know that some of you might be celebrating Mother's Day. It's honoring mothers in the culture where we live. So it's hard to hold both at the same time. There's, in some ways, there is celebration, and then on the other hand, there is this really heavy. Because of course you start thinking about your children. You have daughters, and it's terrifying. I remember when we went to the secondary school the very first time, introducing our daughter to the new secondary school. She goes to a girls' school, and the head teacher said to all the parents is that by the end of the next 2 years, your daughters, every single one of them, will have a sexual experience in some shape or form. And that was a terrifying thought for me to hear, is that she was starting school, she was 11, what are we really talking about? So I think there is a big topic around women and how we handle that.
So sisters, I want to hear from you. Have you experienced this miserable, awful, despicable, disgraceful, degrading, disgusting, I don't know, I'm running out of words, experience that subjects you to sexual harassment by men? Have you experienced it? If you have, I really would love to hear from you. I want to know if Muslim women experience the same. Because some people think, oh, Muslims don't experience anything like this. I want to know from you if you have experienced it. Anna, you've been a Muslim for over 20 years now. Before you became Muslim and since you've been Muslim, what has been the difference in experience, or has it been, or what experiences have you had?
Well, I have a very colourful palette of experiences. So before I was a Muslim, I worked for the European Union. So I was surrounded by men. I worked in an office where only handful of us were women. And we had a colonel who was running the office. I used to work for the international department. And it was daily. And for me, that experience is really now more and more signified, because the daily little digs, the little comments, the little, even if there wasn't anything physical, there wasn't any physical touching, although the colonel did a couple of things with some of my colleagues, especially with the secretaries and PAs.
Using his power.
It was absolutely about power, and it was an intimidation. It was a tool to intimidate anyone who was a female. Literally, the entire the department was about that.
Oh, that's disgusting, of course, and that kind of men should be. You don't ask me what kind of punishment they deserve, because I'll come out with some wacky ones. But leaving that aside, the attention that men used to, words that they used to throw at you, the way they used to look at you, did you feel uncomfortable? Did you feel violated?
All the time. all the time. And the really interesting thing about this is that when you are young and you're trying to focus on your work, you don't even realize how deeply ingrained those comments become. Even though I would say I was quite mature with my work, but I didn't realize how degrading those comments are.
I'm glad a lot of our program is listened by a lot of men today. Roman Ahmed says Assalamu alaikum. Nadeem Mirza says salam.
Walaikum salam.
Ruzi Bibi says salam. Shishu Mia says salam. Ihsan Osman says salam. Most of them are men, mashallah. I like this that men are listening today. I know they're going to be talking. We're going to be talking about their wife, so they probably have just jumped to the idea. Let's go and listen. But today, brothers and sisters, I really want to talk about why is it that us, I'm talking about us men, have this terrible habit of looking at a woman in a very disgusting way. I was listening to a program a couple of days ago, and a woman phoned in and she says to me, I am disgusted to even live. So the presenter asked why. It was a radio program. And she said, because every time I go out, men tend to derobe me with their eyes. It's as if they're looking at me by taking my clothes off just by their eyes. That, can you just imagine living like this every day? And some men think it's okay. Some men think it's okay to look at a woman like this. Some men think it's okay to talk about women with their friend in a disgusting, nasty, deriding, sexualized, objectified manner. They think it's okay. It's being part of being a man. It's having banter. Well, let me tell you, brothers and sisters, no, it's not okay. It is not okay to talk about a woman in that deriding manner. It is not okay to talk about a woman as if she is a sexual object, objectified, sexualized by your desire, your filthy desires. It's not okay. If you're a man and you talk like that, take heed. Would you like that to be? Would you like somebody to talk about your daughter like this? I find it very disgusting.
But you know, let's look at it this way. Toxic masculinity has always been around. It's just a different kind of conversations that we are having now. That I'm hoping that there is an opening for both men and women. So for women to talk about it more openly, expressing it. As I said, when I was young, and with all, you know, all the knowledge and all the wisdom that whatever we have at that age, when we start work, we don't realize how, you know, it sips into the psychology that it just becomes so normalized that we don't think there is a problem. And I as a woman, I hold my hand up and say that nobody has ever highlighted this for me. I was not given an education about this. I wasn't told what is acceptable behavior, what is not acceptable. So you kind of go and you try to learn on the job, but it's a really difficult.
But you accept it, isn't it? Because if nobody has said that men should not be looking at you like this, you accept it. It's okay. It's normal for men to look at me.
Well, it's not that you accept it. You know that something is inherently wrong, but how do you challenge that when you are the only one, or there are a couple of you who you know it's wrong, but you are literally trying to speak to power? If I did, and after 2 years I was fired. I just couldn't stay because it was not an environment I could imagine and I know so many people women who leave jobs because of this.
And then men touching women.
That's another level. I think it's the first, for me, the really dangerous is when the communication is at that level that you don't even realize mentally how damaged you already are, because they are talking about you in a particular way. They make comments with you in presence in the room. They degrade you, they degrade your quality of work, and it is particular because I know I was the only one in my department who I was doing the international affairs. I was the only one who spoke English in the department, so every single letter had to come through me. But they degraded me continuously, even though I was responsible, because I was a woman.
So this is disgraceful. I feel sitting here, I feel very sad that you have to go through all this, Hannah. I do. There is nothing I can do to change that. This attitude, this look, the communication, the way they talk about women.
But that's just the first level. And then the second level, when it becomes physical. And then you've got a little pat, you've got a little shoulder hold. You know, let me just hold your shoulder and let me comfort you. As a boss, you don't do that to someone who is your employee. And then the hands, of course, go somewhere else. And then you have to pull away. And it's just, and it goes further and further. And then it continued until actually I was invited to do one of the jobs. I was asked to become the interpreter for the head of the department, and he said, well, of course there are other added elements and added bonuses with this job, and you will get a house paid for you if you want, but of course you have to be my girlfriend. And that was the point for me. I said I can't stay in this job, so I gave up and I left.
this is, I don't have the words to describe, Hannah, how you must have felt. But ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about how men treat women, how men, that's men, us, treat women. If we look at a woman, and I'm sorry, we're talking about marriage show, and we're talking about the other half. Today I want to talk about our wives, our daughters, our mothers, our nieces. I want to talk about women generally. Why is it that in this society, in 21st century world, in this day and age, women are still facing such degrading treatment from men? Why do men think it's okay to look at a woman sexually? If it's haram for you to look at anyone, don't look. That's this saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Literally, Ali radiallahu anhu was looking at a woman. He put his hand and said, "Ya Ali, turn away. Lower your gaze, because the first gaze is allowed. Don't prolong your first one."
We have a joke about this, remember? I'm still on the first.
First look, yes. But the verse of the Quran is very beautiful. Lower what follows from the first gaze. Now, why do we talk about it in a marital context? Is because your relationship with your wife is determined by your attitude towards women. How do you deal with women? How do you see them? How do you treat them? This is how you will treat your wife. Simple and straightforward.
You know, I follow a very simple formula. Like in most things in life, everything starts with a thought. It starts with a belief. Then you generate some emotions around that belief, and then you have a behavior following the belief. It's called the iceberg theory of change. It's very simple. When you believe fundamentally that it's okay to talk about women or talk to women or behave with women in a particular way, the emotion that it generates is that masculine kind of I can do anything, and there is testosterone filled activity, and then the action is going to be a disrespectful behavior. It's a very simple line in my equation. What you believe about women, how you feel about women, and how you act towards women, it's all connected. Nothing is simple. So you can't, I know a lot of men that they think when they change the behavior a little bit, they modify the behavior. The belief underneath is still dangerous. What you believe about women. I remember my first man, my job, my boss, the first man who actually did say things to me about how now when I analyze it, I understand what his deep belief was, that women are for nothing else except for procreation, for playing, for disrespecting, and everything that came out of it, his behavior was just a result of that thinking. So I want to ask men to think about, what are your beliefs about women? What do you believe about women? Because when your belief is not in alignment with the Islamic principles, then your behavior is never going to be Islamic. There's no point of saying something on the surface, looking, behaving, shaping yourself up and behaving as if you are a gentleman. What is your belief about women? Deeply, what do you believe that women are?
Well,
they are.
Let's talk about it. If you objectify your wife, if you objectify a woman, you'll objectify your wife. If you sexualize woman, you'll sexualize your wife. Though sexualizing your wife in a halal manner, in a respectful manner, is absolutely allowed. But the disrespectful sexualization of women outside would come into your house. Your behavior towards your wife would be exactly that. Remember, our wives are no different to us. They are also a creation of Allah. Allah made them just like He has made me. And Allah has made us for a purpose. And I am so vexed by some of the stories I've heard.
Do we have any comments?
People have said prayers for also for Sarah's family. We do indeed. May Allah have mercy on Sarah's family. Dawood King says, salute they.
I can't read them because they have harder
lives than men. Okay, fine.
Harder lives.
Something about Ali being fake. No, listen. Don't sectarize my comment. Ali ibn Abi Talib was young man at that time. And every human being makes all sorts of errors in their life. So Ali's story isn't fake. So just want to say that. Shamim Zafar says, Salamu alaikum. I love your headscarf matching your outfit.
Thank you. I didn't notice.
And Sumadin, Salamu alaikum. Good topic, and also tragic that harmful beliefs are still so widespread. Yes, and I want to know if Muslim men believe this. And do you know they do? Do you know they do? I had a client not that long ago where the man was told just before he got married by his elders in his family, the men, that don't ever give independence to your wife, keep them under your control, use them for one thing only, and that's it, no more. And he was horrified. Obviously, that really impacted him. He could not relate to his wife in any other way except that constantly
The thought that
yeah,
has been put in his head, right?
reverberating in his head. And they broke up. They had a divorce at the end of it.
Wow.
She couldn't cope with his behavior, family's behavior towards women. It's terrible. Misogyny does exist in the Muslim community, and I want to address that. And I want to know, sisters, from you, have you ever experienced anything like this? Have you been violated? When you walk down the street, whether you're wearing a hijab or not wearing a hijab, do you see men's eyes following you, darting around your body, looking at different parts of your body, trying to expose further and see what's beyond the clothes? Do you experience that? And if you do, please tell me about it. I really want to really destroy this concept once and for all.
But we have this in the Muslim community too. We walk around with a headscarf. If you are a white convert, for example, if you go certain parts of the Muslim world, you will get the comments, you will get the snars, you will get all those things, even though you are fully covered. You know, I lived in so many parts in the Arab world, and it's a constant experience because I don't know why men think they can just say anything while I'm passing on the street. I am actually, when I moved to Fez, you remember when I was in Morocco for a month, I thought this is the safest place I can be. I was wearing a full jalaba, like the whole day. Every time I went out, I put on the full robe, I put on a headscarf, and I would still get the comments. And I don't understand why men think that they can just make comments about anyone's dress code, how my face is, how I should, stop and talk to them. And I don't understand where this mentality is coming from. And I think it's the thought, that belief that you can talk to a woman in any way, any shape, or you want without consequences.
You can't.
And it's incredible that whether you're covered or not, it's not even related to how you look as a Muslim. It's people, our daughter, she was getting comments. She was 14. Walking on the street with you, and men eyeing her and talking about her and whispering, and she was 14.
And
it's incredible.
I said in Jum'ah yesterday, for the first time in my life, I actually said, if somebody did that to my daughter, I'll go and kill him. I've never used such terminology in my life, but I am entitled to it. You know why? Because I'm so enraged. Of course, I will never kill anyone. Of course, it's given. But the rage and the anger that overtakes me when I see men think it's acceptable to deride. Sometimes I walk through a crowd of young people and I hear them talking filthy language about women. I hear them talking in a nastiest possible way with their tongue. My father would have said, put some bleach in your mouth and go and detoxify your mouth, you young man. My father would have said that to me straight away. And I say the same thing to those young people or old people. If you speak about women in such a way, even bleach will not clean your mouth. I really am angry today. I don't know.
You need to calm down.
I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm very upset.
It's not going to change the situation.
But I'm upset that some men think it's acceptable.
I know, but how would it change it? The question is, how do we change it?
By challenging it, and I'm challenging our men.
Anyone has any suggestions, any thoughts, any ideas, let us know. We're talking about unfair treatment of women. And I was introducing those of you who are joining us late that I believe it comes from a belief system which generates a feeling, which generates an action and the outcome. By the time men are disrespectful towards women, they have gone through a whole load of mental process. And I think that's what I'm interested in. How do we debunk, how do we unpack that mental process, the kind of messages you hear about women, how you build up your idea of what a woman is, who the woman is on a thought level. What are the beliefs that you get from your family? How do your parents treat each other? How does your father treat your mother? These are all bricks and pieces that put the whole picture together. How do you think about the other gender? I think for me that's a really big important question.
Yes. So how do you treat women, brothers and sisters? Maryam says, Salamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Imtiaz says, Salamu alaikum. Then Ruzi Bibi says, after my marriage, many times I heard some people from in-laws' side to my husband, woman meant to be under men's feet, never give them power. Atiya Patan says, I still hear Muslim men saying that Allah has endowed them with a carnal nature that prevents them from not staring at women, and that the onus is on women to dress in a way that doesn't entice them. This narrative needs to change. What do you think of that?
Well, just as I said, whether you're covered or not, men are still making comments. So it's something is in the mindset that needs to change instead of the women.
Can I just say to you something? When as a man, I can tell you the truth. When a woman passes by, my eyes will fall on her. without a shadow of a doubt. I will look. As a man, I will. But something that is very beautiful in the Quran, Allah says, that eye that you have just put, let me give you the benefit of the doubt. Allah is saying, let me accept that to be an eye involuntary look. You've looked because it's just a gaze, just look. But once you have looked, don't look again. The second time you look, that's the look of intent. And precisely the problem, Jon Snow in a TV interview, the Channel 4 newsreader said something very beautiful. He said, what a man does with that look makes him a human or an animal.
Yeah.
If you know what to do with that look, so you look at somebody, a woman passing by, yes, you're looking, and you look away. That makes you a human. But if you prolong your look or keep looking or look back again and try and strip her from her clothes with your eyes, that makes you an animal. And that's precisely what Allah is saying in the Quran. Yes, inevitably you would look, but turn your eyes away. By the way, women look too. Allah says that in the Quran, يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ, and tell women also to put their gaze down, because first look is allowed. Second one is of lust and desire. Don't do it.
No, because the second one is a decision.
A decision, correct.
And I read a quote a couple of days ago which says, a mistake made again is a decision. You make a mistake of keep going, and this is how everything is. The same principle with alcohol, with anything else. You do a little bit, oh, this a little bit is allowed, a little bit is allowed. With every principle, you keep making the same step, you take the same step, it becomes a decision. And what makes us different is we have a brain, we have a reasoning capacity of why am I doing what I'm doing and why I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So it's very much in alignment with what we think, what we believe, and how we make a decision at that level.
I know you can't read the screen because for some odd reason the font has been made to so small. I don't know how, but what my son must have done something.
I think you put it on the other side. So upbringing of boys in Asian societies, Faria says, especially can be very derogatory towards women and what their roles are in society. Also, I feel the young girls are not really educated about men's behavior, their natural desires, and how they can perceive women. Girls should be taught that negative behavior, derogatory beliefs should be challenged and not accepted. I think talking frankly to both young boys and girls about the importance of respect is essential. Absolutely, absolutely. It's important that women also are equipped, which I don't think we were in our generation. We never had the kind of education that maybe now it's opening up a little bit more. I'm not sure it's everywhere, but we never had. We were thrown in the jungle and we had to survive in whichever way we could.
You were expected to behave in a particular way. You were expected by the society to actually make yourself available, make yourself look attractive, make yourself look a potential partner in the future. So a bit of showing, a bit of this, a bit of makeup, a bit of flirting on the street was encouraged by the society, because society felt and feels still that unless women do that, men won't look at them. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Why are women being told to behave like this? And why are boys not being challenged for looking back or looking at women in a sexualized, derogatory way? Because that's what sips into your family. That's what breaks your family. That's what brings bad, toxic culture in your family, and your children start behaving the same way. I was listening to the radio where a radio presenter was having a blazing row with a woman. And she said, look, we need to educate our boys that every woman out there is like their mother. Not their mother, but like their mother. A species from their mother, a woman, number one. Number two, like their sister. Number three, like their daughter and their niece. And later on, when they find a partner, it's only that partner who has given them permission to have a relationship. And you have given permission to her to have a relationship. No more. And the second thing the woman said was very interesting. She said, and I want to tell my daughters, if you don't have any self-respect, nobody else will respect you. So out of self-respect, be powerful. Say no to those men when they're looking. Challenge them.
Yeah.
Ask for attention and support from other people. Don't allow it to get away with it. And third thing she said was, it is not acceptable for you to show. Why should I have to show? What do you think I am, a display object? She was really, really good on the radio. And the presenter went completely quiet, couldn't say anything. She said, do you think I'm a display object? Then you can look at me and I should be showing you? No. And I really like that attitude. I like feisty, fighting women who can fight back these terrible men to put them in their right places.
As long as they are not fighting at home with you, right?
They don't have to fight with me at home. Mariam says women are still expected to behave in a certain way. Question how to get husbands to help out with housework and cooking when they are reluctant to do so. Okay, well, we can talk about how to get your husband more importantly involved at home at another show when we talk about husbands.
I got a couple of questions from a few of you, and thank you for sending me the question about how to run a household which incorporates both genders. But in just the one sentence, it is related, because when men are not helping out, it's coming from a behavior perspective. It's coming from a belief that they shouldn't because it's not manly, they shouldn't because they've never seen their father doing it. So it is related to the mindset we are talking about, is how men look at equality and what that equality actually means.
Somebody just raised a question about how hadith mentions about women should obey men. Now look, brothers and sisters, some of you don't know how to read hadith. You read hadith in isolation. A man came to the Prophet and said, "O Prophet of Allah, advise me." Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't get angry." Is that all that there is to Islam? Tell me. Is that it? Nothing else?
Can't be.
Can't be. Another man came to the Prophet and said, "O Prophet of Allah, advise me." Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't lie." Is that all that there is to Islam? Each of the companions who came and asked him a question, there was a context to it. The man who came and asked him about his advice, Prophet knew this man was suffering from anger problems. The other man was a liar. A woman came and complained to the Prophet about her husband. Prophet ﷺ knew what the problem was. Each and every answer he gave had a context. And that context, if you don't understand, you'll misunderstand them. So when a woman was told to obey her husband and a general advice was given, that woman was causing trouble for her husband. Another time, Prophet ﷺ said to the man, the best of men are the one who is best to their wives. Because he knew some men were not good to their wives. So every hadith should be read in their context and don't take them in isolation. Take the example of the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. Did he ever in his entire life, Hannah, you've read his life, I've read his life many times, and you've read his life many times. Can you show me one example of Prophet ever deriding women, disrespecting women, commenting negatively about women, talking down at women, belittling them, sexualizing them, objectifying them, or simply mocking them? Give me one example when Prophet ﷺ did this.
Never.
And if Prophet is your example, please don't quote me isolated hadith that have a context and a history and a story behind before and after. Please, brothers and sisters, get it right.
What is really interesting and fascinating about this, when we look at different types of hadiths that we get of behaviors, is that when you look at each and every individual case, it is because we are all going through some tribulations about certain aspects. We will not carry in the entire range of everything is bad with us, but there are certain hadiths that need to speak to our soul. So it addresses particular type of people who have lying issues, particular type of people who have anger issues, particular type of people who no matter what, they will just fight with the husband for no reason. And we need to look at it that way, that the entire collection of hadiths, if we take one at a time when we need it, after 10 years we will need another one. This is the whole collection is for our soul to grow. It's not just taking one and then disregarding the rest. It's a manual for a spiritual growth and a manual for the soul to actually become the best it can be. I never had anger problems at the beginning. Now I understand why. When I started having anger problems, I was looking at these particular hadiths because these were important to me, and I had to learn that stage of my life. I had to learn something else about anger. Then I moved on to another area. So look at it as a manual, and don't isolate just one or two things. And Islam is a very complex, layered
and comprehensive
way of being. It's a way of living. It's not just a pick and choose manual that I want to use this because I need
like
it.
that idea, pick and choose.
Because that's what we do, right? Yeah. We just pick and choose. And I think when it comes to relationships,
pick and choose, pick and mix.
Pick and mix.
And they mix them up with something that doesn't exist.
Or 2 for 3, and then you get 2 and I get a third.
And the culture and the misreading, misogyny, misinterpretation, in some cases the toxic feminism, toxic masculinity or chauvinism as we know, both of them cause, some people even read the Quran using those toxic ideas. I really want to challenge those things. Today, really, brothers and sisters, forgive us if we are slightly going off on a tangent about other topics, but I am focusing on the precise nature of our program today, which is to do with the other half. If you carry on, I think something is happening with the consumption of my batteries dying again. I need to sort this out, right? Do you want to carry on while I get this sorted out? Carry on. We
I can.
inshallah,
I'm just going
some
to have a
messages.
look at some messages in here. Assalamu alaikum. Sometimes people confuse culture for religious beliefs or how women should be in the house and community, which is very wrong. There should be mandatory course where people are educated the rights and responsibilities of men and women before getting married. Absolutely. This is why we need to educate both boys what is harm for them. Some brothers are very respectful. Yes, of course, we are. Hold on, I just need to move this. And some degrade women. I think this culture and environment they circulate in. So yes, so I want to bring why my husband is fixing some technology. I want to bring in something that I am very passionate about, which is part of my subjects. Is I work in neuroscience. I study neuroscience, and I look at relationships and brain and how particularly our brain is in relationships. Now, the brain is a social organ. It's on its own, it's very powerful, but it only evolves, and it's always seeking connections. It's seeking belonging. It's seeking a place where it feels that it's not alone. Now we need to understand first, and we started talking about this, how mentality, behavior, and a belief system evolves within ourselves, depending on which culture and what surroundings we are in. Now, the brain doesn't want to stand out. We don't like being alone. So from very young age, my son goes to boys' school, and they start having ideologies from the teachers as well as from the classroom with the boys. They talk about, women should be at home, they should be cooking, and they should be doing particular things in a way that fits into the Islamic ideology. And I challenge my son all the time. I said, look at your own example of what kind of household you are growing up in. What do you see? What is Islamic? What would you like to challenge? So we have these conversations continuously. But when we are at school, it's really, really hard to say no to a prominent culture that's happening. And I think it starts at a very young age. When it comes to educating boys and girls about relationships, I'm not talking about sex education. I'm talking about a relationship as a compass. What is a good relationship? How do we teach respect for boys and girls, both? It starts at school, because when you are at school, you pick up ideas of what it means to be a man and what it means to a girl. That sets the foundation of your brain. As you go along, your brain is going to continue to seek out those experiences to rectify and justify your beliefs that you have already built up about what men or women should be. And then as you go older and older, it becomes more and more. So it's really important that we understand this. This is not what we are dealing with is already a phenomenon. It's already developed. It has already happened. We need to go back. We need to go back to the younger generation, and we need to talk about respect and relationships in a very different way. I'm honestly, I'm not talking about sex education. I think that's just a whole another level of
I think that's probably the point Shahina was making, that there should be a mandatory course where people are educated on the rights and responsibilities of men and women before getting married. Not just rights and responsibilities, it's about attitude as well.
It's behavior. What do you believe about the other sex?
How do you look at them? Are they your equal? Can they be your equal? Can you treat them equally with dignity and honor? Do you look at them as objects of desire? Are they part of your fetish? Are they part of your dirty, murky world of fantasies that you have? Are you disrespectful towards them? What is your attitude towards them? It starts from there, brothers and sisters. Ruzi Bibi says this is why we need to educate boys at home.
I've already read that.
Okay. Shamim Zafar, have you read that? But some brothers are very respectful. You read that?
Yes, I did.
Very good. Ruzi Bibi says it should not be hard to talk to your own boys. Very true. Mariam Batan says feisty women are the best.
Yes.
Men should help, and it's to do with upbringing. Mariam continues, need to change mindset and challenge in a good way. Make people understand. Would you want your sister or daughter be treated like this? Let the men think that alone should be enough to change men. Of course, I agree. And then Zaid Raket says, Salaam alaikum, discussing this with my wife as we watch the show. We agree that it's probably the lack of education, but the interesting thing is that it probably happens to both sides, i.e. toxic beliefs that are handed down by each gender through the generations, men sexualizing women, woman keeping her husband under the thumb. That's another issue,
Yeah.
the control issue.
Very interesting.
Control in the sense that you are feeling very insecure about yourself, and you want to keep a tight leash on your husband's neck. So where he's going, what time he comes home, when he goes out, which friend he sees, who he talks to, you want to keep a complete control over. That's also very toxic. And of course, the behavior of men sexualizing and objectifying them, or similar control over them, thinking it's okay to control women. It is not okay to control anybody. I know you, in the morning, you were going out for a walk, and I said, it's fine, you can go out for a walk. And you smilingly said to me, thank you for giving me the permission. And I was lying on my bed thinking, you know what? Why would I need to give my wife permission to do anything? Seriously. Why would I think like that? Why would my mind even think like that? Men who think that they need to give permission, or their wife needs to seek permission from them, there is something fundamentally wrong in their thinking. Do you know what's wrong? You're not treating your wife as an adult. Why would an adult person need your permission? The only person I should be conscious of is Allah. The only power worthy of worship is Allah. If I'm conscious of Allah, why would I need your permission? What would my wife do if she wants to do by taking my permission or me preventing her permission? It makes no sense, really makes no sense.
It makes no
Literally, as you left the room to go for a walk, I was lying there thinking, why would I even ask you to ask my permission? Why would I do that? It's not even in my vocabulary, because it's not that I don't trust her. I just think every human being is trustworthy. Anyway.
And it also, just to side with Mariam as well, that, you know, the feisty women, the more you try to control, the more they're going to run away. And that's a really interesting point that a lot of men don't understand. The more control you try to exert, the feistier a woman can get, and the more she wants to either run away or put you under her thumb.
Or you destroy them. What you then have is a woman who has been so destroyed by your behavior. She's suffering from mental health issues. She's on antidepressants. She's
That's
having
right.
this, she's having that. So what have you got in return?
You can't win.
Destruction. Trail of destruction behind you. Let's read more. I believe women's right and respect came to the society by our Prophet. It is true.
Yes.
He stood against those barbarian Arabs who used to bury their daughters alive. That's the attitude.
Yeah.
They used to have the attitude of burying their daughters alive because they did not think women were worthy of even living. Bury them alive. So barbaric. And Prophet stood against them and stopped it. Stop that practice once and for all. Yes, physically it may have stopped, but some of our behavior still buries a woman's dignity, her honor, her self-esteem alive, and that's so sad.
It takes generations to change this, and we are actually responsible. What are we imparting to our children? What are we saying to our boys and girls about gender relations? And I'm particularly interested in history, and there's one really interesting thing I want to bring in. And we know, of course, Professor Akram Nadwi's work, who has done amazing, phenomenal collection of the female muhaddithat. But there's something in history that we don't understand, is that as long as women are not in the books or for the good that they have done, women have to work a little bit harder to make sure that we have those rights, and we are respected for who we are. When you look at, I was doing a bit of study around women in Andalusia, for example, the way the freedom and the expression, the women were creative, and they were part of society, they were part of making changes, they were part of a political system, they were running the libraries, they were literally so closely ingrained with power, because what was the mindset is that they are equal.
Wow. And they were treated for their brain.
They were treated with respect for who they are.
Their brain, I want to say,
Yes,
the
yes.
intellectual discussion. I say to a man, if a woman and a man are talking, and if I see the man is staring at her breasts or her body, I often want to say, hey, look at her brain, you look up. But obviously that's me. If I was a woman, I'd knock him out saying, Goy, look at my face. Don't look at what I have on my chest. This is disgraceful. Our brain is what we should be connecting with. Physical body, we all have a body. It's the brain connection where the respect starts. If you respect a woman for who she is, for her power and intellect, her contribution and potential, you will never sexualize her and objectify her.
We have lots of comments today, so thank you for...
I love the name Cinnamon Tea. How a working husband and wife should help to raise their children without being way too apart from their childhood life. Is that a question?
I'm not quite sure I
We
understand.
will definitely discuss about childcare maybe another time, but we're focusing on the other half today. And the other half happens to be your wife, my wife, our daughters, our mother, the woman folk in general. And the next one is Mariam Khan says, can you give examples of hadith to teach children about how men would and women should behave towards each other? Well, look at the life of the Prophet. How did he talk to the Prophet? His wife. His wife said, Aisha said beautifully, a companion came to the Prophet's wife after he had passed away, and she said, oh Aisha, please tell us about the Prophet's character. Tell us about the Prophet's character. Aisha said, don't you read the Quran? Companion said, what do you mean? Of course I read the Quran. How can you ask that question? It's like somebody saying, are you not a Muslim? Aisha said, if you read the Quran, you would not be asking me this question. For Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the living manifestation of the Quran. He was the living embodiment of the Quran. This is his wife talking, brothers and sisters. If his wife is saying he was the living embodiment of the Quran, that's an amazing certificate. Because Allah says that in the Quran, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ Muhammad, you are the best standard of good nature and good conduct. So we don't have to look at anybody else to find the example, the true manifestation of what it means to have a male role model. Another hadith of Rasulullah, he said, the best man in the world is the one who is best to his wife. He said to his companions again and again, your wife has a right over you, your body has a right over you, your family has a right over you, regularly, constantly reminding each other that we must be respectful of each other and not be driven by our misogyny, toxic malehood, or toxic femininity. It should be a healthy one. Do you want to read the next?
Yes, I really like this. Noreen Khan is saying, when you look online, all you see is the rights of men, not much rights of women.
Why do you look online anyway?
Well, I don't know what the context is, but it's very. I think she means in an Islamic context that there is a dominant conversation around men saying this is my right and this is what I'm entitled to, and I think that's again part of the toxic thinking. So we are talking about toxic thinking, and it's a toxic belief system that builds up. Is that men have certain rights over women, and of course there is that the concept of the men are protectors over women. So maybe we can look at that from an Islamic context a little bit more. But I think what we are seeing today is that, and I keep saying this, that while the conversation is still happening, and I think it will happen for generations, and I think it's a good way to educate ourselves, to open our minds, because certain things we will see at certain point in our lives. As the conversation is going, this is an old subject and we are just putting a new spin to it. This has been going on for years. And if
remember, Prophet's mission was to address the male misogyny, toxic male manhood, toxic manhood in a society where women were not just object of desire, but they were being thrown in the pit of sand in a graveyard and buried alive. So it's not only today. Bobby Rahman is furthering this particular toxic conversation. Bobby, you've got it completely wrong. Which hadith are you talking about? Which hadith have been accepted by scholars in isolation? Islam is a comprehensive code of life. You can't read one part of the Quran. Allah says that in the Quran. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْدِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْدِ. Are you going to accept some part of the Quran and reject the other? For those who do that, they will be facing misery on this earth and in the hereafter. Same goes for the hadith. Sayings of the Prophet cannot be taken in isolation. In fact, you cannot take the sayings of the Prophet in isolation and away from his own practice and his life. If a hadith contradicts the Prophet's practice and his life, then we should be doubting that hadith, because Prophet's life was the manifestation of the true essence of Islam. So, Bobby, you're just furthering the same old story. We don't want to talk about this nonsense again and again. What did the Prophet do? That's what I want to talk about. What does the Quran say? That's what I want to talk about. Shamim Zafar says, I have 3 boys. I'm terrified the direction society is heading towards, especially as women in the media are being sexualized. And some women think this is equality and empowering.
Yeah,
there is a point there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's even more important that women come and talk and speak and express. And I'm going to say that particularly Muslim women, because when we are confronting it, when we are talking about it honestly, and when we appear. I often say to people that a Muslim woman just simply appearing and talking about these really important issues is going to start changing. Yes, you will get really hard questions, because we get the question all the time: why do you need to put the headscarf on? Why do you need to cover yourself? We get this all the time. But I always look at it as a way of, am I strengthening my relationship with Allah? Am I strengthening my faith by participating in these conversations? I mean, long time ago I stopped talking about women in Islam, because I think that in itself is degrading. Why are we talking about women in Islam? What does it even mean? Like, there are men and women, of course, but why women in Islam? There is no need for that being a special, I don't know, treat, especially just because we are women. We talked about it 10, 15 years ago, but now it's a different conversation. We need women. We need more people to become who they are and take every opportunity to address these really
I think this
difficult
brother
questions.
is also talking about how the media often abuses women by, for example, having a scantily clad woman displaying a toothpaste, or selling a car.
Yeah,
This-
or toilet paper, for that matter.
This is not happening anymore as much anymore as it used to happen 5-10 years ago. But you're absolutely right; it is still happening. And some women tell me that senior bosses in their workplace, in the media, especially if they're presenting news, if they're fronting a TV program, expect them to stand with clothes that shows part of their bodies.
Right.
There is a pressure on some woman in some media organization that if they're standing in front of the camera, unless some flesh is shown, apparently it will not be as, in quote unquote, attractive as if she was covered completely. Now that expectation, that pressure placed by senior bosses, whether you're a woman senior boss or a man senior boss, actually is not acceptable. Leave women to their own choices. If you as a man don't have the same to show a bit more of your skin, when I go on screen, nobody tells me show a bit of your screen. Open up your top button a bit, please. Bring it down. Nobody ever says that to me. But I've heard
Thank
it.
God.
I've heard this said to women. Why don't you open up the next button a bit? Show a bit more of what you have.
A bit more comfortable, you know.
I have heard this from producers. I've heard this from makeup artists. I've heard this on the floor of programs, and I tell you, it's enraging. It's absolutely disgusting. But as a man, I can't say anything, because there is a woman who is there, and she has to defend herself. She has to stand up and say, no, I'm not showing what I have.
We have to start making different choices, because the media is a murky world on its own. But we women have to start making different choices, I think.
You don't need to show anything. You need to choose whatever you want to do in life, but don't do it because somebody else is demanding you, or somebody else is objectifying you. It's unacceptable. Abdul Majid has written a long one. I run workshops on masculinity and identity. Very good, Abdul Majid. That's fantastic. There is a part where we ask a question: who is your role model? And 95% of young men back with their mother is the role model. Okay, mother is the role model. There could be few factors here. Could be broken marriage, single parents, that father are never home and busy earning for the family, or other factors, as well as man too busy fulfilling one responsibility and forgetting the other. Responsibility to our children and our other half. What can we do to balance this responsibility? Fantastic point, actually.
Love it.
Fantastic point. Many men, unfortunately, let me start that again. Many children who grow up in a family with one parent only, they do struggle. I want to be compassionate and sympathize with my sisters who are single parents, or my brothers who are single parents. I have every sympathy and compassion for them. May Allah make it easy for you. But while that we support and encourage, if you have two parents around and one parent is only putting their weight around and the other one isn't, it's a major issue. It's a major issue. If one of the spouses is completely absent, then children grow up accepting that. Okay, my father is not alive or is not available. My mother is not here. My father is. They accept it and they grow up with it. Okay, you can try and balance it. But if they know that two parents are there, but one of them is too busy and they're not prioritizing their children, it leaves a grave impact on their life, especially if the fathers are absent. Because you don't teach your children how to be a good male role model. And that absence is a problem.
I think any role modeling, whether it's a man or a husband and a wife, or a mother and a father. But I think I want to say something that might be a more practical solution, is that, you know, a lot of men I know, they use this example and the excuse that, oh, I'm working and I have to make money, because without making money, you know, we're not going to be able to survive. While that is true, you have to be very, very careful with that statement. That is one part of your life. What would you regret on your deathbed? And this is, for me, this is the big question. If I'm spending my last day on this earth, and if I look forward, if I imagine that this is my life, this is what I have done, what are the things that I would have regretted? Money making would never be on the list.
No.
Because when I'm on my deathbed, I could be a millionaire, but does it matter if I'm alone? If I have nobody to call me, if I have no one next to me, no one holding my hand when I'm passing from this world, it just doesn't make sense. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I understand, and you know, we make these decisions constantly as a family, is that we prioritize our relationship with our children over money. You know, we could be both very heady, running lots of businesses and making money. Everyone has the capacity to do that, but we want to be available for our children, and we want to know that we are doing our best. Whatever comes out, we don't know. It's in the hands of Allah, but doing our best to make sure that the children get time. And I'm not talking about buying stuff for the children. And you know, there's a beautiful philosophy. Don't buy things for your kids. Give them experience.
Yes.
Take them, walk with them, talk with them, play games with them. You know, build up experiences instead of chasing more to buy more, because
money can't buy love.
Yeah, kids look at games and they look at a Lego, and after 2 days, 3 days, they play with it, they throw it away. It makes, connection can never be replaced with the stuff that we buy for the children.
Absolutely.
And time is money. So invest your time in your children. Don't run after money. Maybe you can downscale a little bit with your expenses, restructure your time so you can give a little bit more, because these are the memories that stay with our memories. You remember your own memories with your parents. Your memories isn't what you got from your parents. It's the time you spent together, the holidays, the walks. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's the experience that's going to stay with you.
Ruzi Bibi says, our culture is ruining our next generation, which is why I'm teaching my kids to go out of the culture and marry someone. Well, Ruzi Bibi, that may not be the solution, because if you deride your culture, you create an imbalance within you and you create an inferiority complex. Every culture has its own problems. What you have to do is teach your children how to navigate those cultures and learn to take the good from the culture and reject the bad, and use Islam as their reference point to be able to navigate such a very complex and sensitive environment. I want to also comment about Bobby. Bobby, you're becoming very fixated about classical scholars. Where does it say in the Quran and the Sunnah that I must follow a particular classical scholar? Every scholar I need to look at and learn from their good things and take away, leave anything that they may have said as a mistake. And I need to constantly live my life here, now, today with the contemporary scholars. Hadith cannot be taken in isolation. It's a simple, straightforward principle of Islamic law. If you don't know it, go and learn about it and not berate our conversation because of that. Catherine says, I feel women are very confused in the West. They want to be respected, but at the same time, they feel the need to post their images on social media, such as Instagram. And we see many young girls on TikTok already taking part in sexualized way of dancing, etc. You're absolutely right.
It's a major beginning of young girls as young as 13, 12 to start their journey. And because their teenage brain can't make those the executive choices, because their brain is not fully developed, they just go with whatever is, they react to impulse. And impulse is what? Imagery. Impulse is how many likes you get a dopamine hit, you feel great, you feel like you are in the center of the world, and suddenly it's so overwhelming to your brain that you don't know what to do.
And you know what happened?
What happened?
Imagine you put out a particular picture and you get 5 likes on that picture. You put out the next picture and you get 100 likes. The picture that you put out with 100 likes, or the one that got 100 likes, what would you do straight away?
Don't know.
You would use the same type of picture to get more likes.
All All right.
Okay, so if I put my
I don't know. I don't do this kind of stuff.
I've
So
never done, I don't even
I have
start,
no
but
idea.
I've read about it. So
Right.
girls who take pictures of their faces, for example, they get 10 likes. They will get 20 likes if they put a little bit more makeup on. If they show a bit of cleavage, they will get 100 likes.
So they start doing the pictures which are with.
Correct.
Right.
So you start exposing a bit more and exposing a bit more. And there are absolutely crazy, crude, nasty people out there who would say, go and show me a bit more of your leg, show me a bit more of your arm, a bit more of your backside.
Let's have a chat. Let's talk, and then
Very soon
never
you're
stop.
groomed into a space where you're not coming back. And that's the sister's point is very right. If you want respect and if you want dignity and honor, you have to fight those men who take it away from you. I'm with you all the way. Knock them out. But knock them out with your intellect, not by deriding yourself or degrading yourself because of their demands. Shamim Zafar says, brother, regarding taking the Prophet ﷺ as the example, I'm sick of hearing from the opposite sex saying that the Prophet ﷺ was extremely exemplary man. Men these days cannot live up to those standards. You can't argue with them. Aisha used to argue with the Prophet ﷺ. If you can't argue with your man and he says Prophet ﷺ has advised him that you should not argue with him, tell that man that Aisha used to argue with the Prophet. In fact, not only argue, she used to show her emotions quite vociferously. She was a feisty girl. That's one of the reasons Prophet ﷺ married her. That's one of the reasons Allah chose her to be Prophet's wife, because of her personality, strength, determination, zeal, leadership that she displayed. That's why she will remain the leaders of the Muslim woman forever, because she was that kind of a woman. If a man thinks his wife should never be heard, she should be like a cat, meowing at his feet, he needs to get a brain check. His Prophet ﷺ's wife used to argue with him. One day, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu was in his house. A man came to complain that his wife is shouting and screaming at him. He came and knocked on the door, but then left. When Umar ibn Khattab came out, the man was going. Umar said, why are you going? You came for some reason. The man said, oh, Umar, I came for a complaint, but I've got the answer. What was your complaint? The man said, I came to complain to you that my wife is shouting and screaming at me. But when I came to your house, I heard your wife doing the same thing to you. I've got my answer, I'm going home. This is Umar ibn Khattab, the second Caliph of Islam. Right. My brothers and sisters, human nature is to have this equality. I'm not saying shouting and screaming is acceptable. I'm not saying that. We should not be shouting and screaming at each other anyway. But to expect your wife to be like a mouse.
How boring life would be, just imagine.
That would be a doormat. I would not like that. I would not like that as a woman.
Oh, thank God that God didn't give you that kind of woman. Anyway, I'm very conscious of time. Thank you so much for your comments. We will go through the comments.
Oh my God, so many.
We had a very lively conversation
this
today.
This is where some education should be very important. Yes, exactly. Sumadin said there is too much confusion and contradiction in the community, e.g. the language around Muslim dating, etc. Ruzi Bibi says, I always talk freely with my kids. Wonderful. Mariam Khan says, what are good bonding activities? What are good Islamic activities? Bobby says, if a woman does not obey the husband, it causes problem in the marriage. Men like... So, Bobby, you have a problem with your wife not listening to you. I get that. I understand that. If that's a problem, why don't you sit down and talk about it to your wife and have that conversation openly and clearly and say to your wife that I want you to listen and obey me. Unconditionally, is that what you're demanding? If that's what you're demanding, then you're being unfair and unjust. Listening and command, that command and obedience structure doesn't come automatically. You have to earn it. If I love my wife and if she loves me, of course we'll listen to one another. If we don't have love, you can scream all you like about obedience, you'll never get it. It is not a robot you're controlling, brothers and sisters. You're not a dictator. A brother came to complain saying, I'm the Khalif of my family. My wife doesn't listen to me. She should be behaving like Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman. I turned around and said, you're not Abu Bakr, Uthman and any of those companions. You're not the Prophet. Brothers and sisters, who do you think you are? Just to finish off our program, please, brothers, I feel so embarrassed and ashamed to say it again and again. Don't look at a woman sexually. Don't deride her. Don't objectify her. Don't ridicule her. Don't talk behind her, about her body. Don't stare at her body in a way that is nasty and disgusting. It is not something that you would like if it's done to your daughter or your mother or your sister or your wife, would you? No, you wouldn't like it. So the bottom line is, if you cannot change that culture that you have, you'll bring it home to your wife and there'll be clash. For a harmonious family to exist, That culture needs to be eradicated immediately.
And sisters,
The same? Go on.
keep being feisty. Just always stand up for what's right, what's Islamic, what's within you, what's integrity. Not screaming and shouting, that's not going to get you anywhere. But if something is important, equality is important, we have to stand up for it on equality. So I keep saying to women, this is how we work together, not one or the other, not this or that. There is always a relationship that's somewhere in the middle. Your relationship is in the middle. That's what you're working towards. By raising your level of confidence, assertiveness, integrity, you are adding to the relationship. You're not taking anything away. You're not acting on power. You are adding to the relationship. So before we go, thank you so much for the conversation.
Oh, what a lively conversation today.
That was probably the most comments we ever got, so thank you for that. We will go through them, and please, if you do have any questions, any other questions, get in touch with us either on our website, which is www.barefootinstitute.com. You can also send us private message on Facebook or on the website info@barefootinstitute.com.
And buy my book. Keep on saying to you, please, 10 steps to getting married and staying married. It really debunks some of those issues that we've discussed today and have been discussing for the last, I don't know how many weeks now. But
a lot of weeks now.
May Allah bless you for watching and joining. Alhamdulillah. Please do buy my book. And Hannah, your book?
And my book, if anybody wants to do a little bit of neuroscience studies, how you deal with your own emotions, how you develop yourself, how do you cling to integrity, this is the journey I have taken from my head to my heart, all packed with neuroscience and some of my personal experiences. Both of this is on our website. You can order them together, separately, number of copies, give it to friends, families as a gift. Let's keep conversing.
Inshallah, until next time, which will be next Sunday if we're still alive and kicking, we'll be discussing something hopefully as exciting as today. May Allah bless you all. May Allah protect us all.
Inshallah,
and may Allah
Ameen.
keep our sisters safe from the
Ameen.
evil eyes of those men and the behavior of those men who deride them, mock them, and cause so much pain for them. May Allah protect us all and forgive us.
Ameen.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
See you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Oh, I don't even know how to switch it off today. Let's see.